Welcome to Constant Variables, a podcast where we take a non-technical look at building and growing digital products. I'm Michael Roth. Let's get nerdy.
This episode is sponsored by the Jed Mahonis Group, the right team for building digital tools to transform your business. Whether you're still weighing your development approach options or maybe you're considering moving to a new tech team, check out our 22 questions to ask a dev team guide to help you choose the team that best aligns with your project's goals. You can find the free guide at jmg.mn/resources or look for the link in this episode's show notes.
Hey, Mike. Welcome to the show.
Hey, Michael. Glad to be here. Thanks for the invite.
So Mike is the founder of inSuppli, and it is a bit of an offshoot from your main company, Manufacturing Power. But inSuppli basically aims to bring a fair value on pricing and show you what's in stock for different manufacturing items around your area. It's location-based, and it can kind of tap into some of those smaller vendors and distributors, from my understanding. Mike, you as the founder obviously have a lot more insight into what inSuppli is. Do you want to maybe describe the problem that you guys are solving a little bit to the audience?
Sure. So about 2 years ago, small to mid-sized manufacturers, which is our target customer base, came to us and said, hey, in the midst of the pandemic and all the supply chain issues, we're in need of a simple product that shows us price and availability from local distribution for industrial supplies so that we can find what we need to support our business. We took our database of almost 10 million part numbers that we had established for our primary business, which is Manufacturing Power, and decided to work with JMG to develop a mobile app that fit exactly what the customers have been asking for. I'm sure we'll get into this more, but so far the feedback, we haven't actually launched yet, but so far the feedback has been very good. There's definitely market fit, and we're super excited to launch and get going with inSuppli.
Yeah. And how have you started to generate feedback? If you say it's pre-launch right now, what are you putting out there to your users to take a look at?
Well, we have, I'll say we have a test version that I've been showing people. And when I say people, because of our other business, we're fortunate enough to have some people that have been willing to take a look at it that fit into our target market or our customer profiles. So, we've had about 20 people that we've asked to take a look at it and give us feedback around it, and all has been super positive, and they have confirmed the need in the market for a tool like this. But our plan is to get as much feedback as we can and keep that ongoing through the product development cycle and through the product roadmap as we develop more features, as we listen to our customers, get the voice of customer information so that we can make the best product development decisions possible. But the initial product, like I mentioned, has had really good feedback from the pretty limited sample set of customers that we've presented it to.
Yeah, and that's an awesome way to kind of test and feel as you develop the product in its final form. And I asked that as a little bit of a loaded question. As a member of JMG, I have a hunch on what's going on with your project, and I know that you guys have had user testable products, but I think it's valuable for other people to realize that even if you're not at your final MVP and your version 1 launch that's going out to everyone, you can still test things as the app owner, and that should should definitely be an expectation.
Yeah, and just to add to that, we're in a fortunate position where we have been conducting user polling and questions and getting feedback from customers about our other product, which is so closely tied to the new mobile app that we feel like we have not only, those 20 or so people that I had mentioned before as far as kind of a feedback basis, but we also have a couple of years of feedback from others. And that's how the product, we could justify actually building out an MVP or a version 1.0 of the actual mobile app to satisfy that need.
Okay. And with that kind of tool of manufacturing power in your guys' toolbox, that probably played a significant role in deciding to go for inSuppli, and it might have inspired all of inSuppli. Was manufacturing power already a full-time commitment for you, or were you working a 9-to-5 and working on manufacturing power as a side gig?
Kind of all the above.
Okay.
So manufacturing power started out as an idea, and I did have a 9-to-5 job as the idea started and the initial development began. But then it quickly turned into something that I really wanted to focus on, and I didn't think that there would be enough time in the day to put it towards both the 9-to-5, and I was in a position where I could take that leap of faith, or evaluated the risk reward scenarios and made the decision to jump into manufacturing power, which has led into inSuppli as well.
And were there any revenue numbers that made you confident enough in manufacturing power to completely leave your 9-to-5, or was it just so much excitement and drive to spend more time on it that you couldn't say no to it anymore?
Honestly, it's the latter.
Yeah.
The concept and the initial product of manufacturing power was so unproven, and hindsight's 2020, but we took a much different approach towards the development decisions with inSuppli versus what we did with manufacturing power, meaning that I had based my hypothesis of manufacturing power, whether it would work or not, based off 20 years of experience within that particular industry, which is industrial supplies, MRO supplies, maintenance, repair, and operational items that support small to mid-sized manufacturing companies. And based off 20 years of experience, I saw that there was a need in the market for that particular product, and I couldn't not try and build it. That was it. It was financially, like most, like a lot of founders say, that they'll be like, don't do it. Don't even think about it. Don't try it. It's too hard. It'll cost you too much money. And it has, but it's been so fulfilling, and the excitement about building something and making a difference was too compelling.
Sure. So diving a little bit into the tech behind inSuppli, it sounds like you didn't have an extremely technical background as far as development goes. You definitely had some experience from exploring manufacturing power, but how did you go about deciding to build the software behind inSuppli?
We had a good foundation, I'll say, as far as some of the we utilized some of the software, the proprietary software that we had developed as kind of a starting point or a baseline. But the key was really the data that we'd collected. So I mentioned before, we had about 10 million part numbers of collected industrial supply data in our database. And that was really the baseline helped our decision to be much easier to actually go for the mobile app. But then, having conversations with JMG, understanding their technical aptitude and understanding for exactly what we were trying to do, it just aligned. and that made that decision making process quite a bit easier. And like you said, I'm not a technical person, more of the idea type person.
Sure.
And that's one thing, but then actually building it and making it function the way that it's been envisioned is another thing. And just from the kind of first conversations with JMG, it was made apparent that we just kind of lined up, and putting the trust in JMG to basically manage and create the technical aspects of it was, after a few meetings and understanding what their capabilities are, and building that trust, I thought there was not going to be an issue with that. And as far as what the general expectation was or is to utilize the database that we had developed, and create both iOS and an Android application that suits the needs of basically all the customers that we're going to encounter. So that was kind of that.
I love how you boiled it down at the end there, because I think that's the perfect approach for listeners. It seems like you having manufacturing power and what was it, 10 million or 10,000 part numbers?
10 million. Mm-hmm.
10 million accessible to you off the bat seems like such a step ahead. Of course, you could have been comfortable building an app, but really, I feel like that is expertise and industry information. And even if you don't have an entire database that's accessible to others, created and sharing that industry information with others, you might have pretty good stocks of it yourself that you can dive into, and really just being able to bring that industry expertise to our technical expertise and letting those two mesh is kind of the value that I see in JMG anyways. And I think it's pretty cool that it was summarized in a very similar way at the end there by you.
Yeah. Great point. I mean, the technical expertise, I don't have. I've never been involved in developing a mobile app, which is different than developing any sort of desktop software, or what our business model for manufacturing power is a SaaS model. So the software that we built is different on that end versus what has been built by JMG for the mobile app, and that was a huge thing as far as getting the feedback from your team about and kind of simplifying that process when explaining it to me. Totally made sense. That's why I said, we kind of gelled from the beginning, and that was, making it easy to understand as a non-technical person who has never, built a mobile app. It was just a good fit from the beginning. And, it's, we want to grow as partners with you guys, in the future, but I don't want to get into all that stuff.
Yeah, we don't have to get, we can find a room to talk about that later. So I know JMG built your mobile app. Yes. And that's been great. I know that you had some other development teams that were playing a role in manufacturing power that had similar frustrations that we found in 2 or 3 of our other recent clients, which has been kind of a shocking uptick for us. But working with an offshore development team that was not giving them exactly what they were expecting to get back seems to be a fairly shared problem for people, and that maybe the base expectations aren't all the same. And what experiences did you have working with an offshore team that you feel like might be valuable for others to learn from?
Well, specifically, myself and my business partner are non-technical people. Okay, we've established that. And when we started working with low-cost offshore development teams, we ran into a couple of issues. One being there was a language barrier that made things difficult. There's a timing barrier that made things difficult to communicate. Just overall communication was difficult. But then also the this is just my experience, by the way. There could be many other different experiences out there. But our experience was that in an effort to satisfy us as the customer, we ran into the challenge of the developers just saying yes to everything that we talked about without, giving us any sort of pushback as to why, or if it wasn't a feasible thing, or if it couldn't work, or if it would screw other things up in the development process. So we just thought, and you kind of touched on it, but the expectations of the product that we had in our mind once we started going through the process completely, I don't want to say it completely changed over time, but because, you're just hearing yes kind of all the time to every feature request or any sort of development request or anything that you're trying to work on, it gets out of scope very quickly. And we didn't have anybody reining us in, whether that's our fault or the development company's fault. I'm not 100% sure, but as a non-technical person, it started to snowball. And once we realized, again, as non-technical people, that things were just kind of like being worked on because they said yes to it, it made things really, really challenging because nothing kind of worked together. And then there wasn't a product that was built and completed on time.
I guess, can I ask as well, this is one detail I don't know. Were you guys under any sort of contract or work order or expectation? And did that change as you got additional yeses? Or were there a lot of verbal agreements in that exchange?
A lot of verbal agreements. And there was tons of scope creep, which, as a person who's not technical, I keep saying it, but I think it's very important to understand that. And for maybe some of your potential customers or customers as non-technical people, if you just get in a scenario where everything is, yep, we can do that. Oh, yep, we can do that. Yep, we can do that. I would be super hesitant to believe that. When you're considering that at the beginning of a project, I would hope that there would be some sort of scope of work that you agree to and stick to that. It's very hard to, I guess, get back to that scope of work unless somebody on the development side is reining you in. Because, I thought as a non-technical person that adding a button here or making this click to that there or opening up another page wasn't that big of a deal, but it all adds up and it all impacts everything that you're trying to do. And there's a lot of challenges with that.
Sure. So I heard you mention that the cost was lower throughout that. And off the bat, I know that overseas development is generally cheaper than onshore development. Were there any other pros, or is there maybe any use case you could think of that it would have been beneficial to go towards an offshore team?
Yeah, if they would have stuck to the scope of work and we would have finished things on time, then it would have been a project that was good. However, there's one big issue with that, is that you sign a contract. And there's a scope of work that's established, but then you start changing things and doing things that impact that scope of work, but then also project timing and cost. So all of those things added up. I don't think it was any cheaper than going with an onshore or a local company to get things done.
Okay.
So that was another huge issue. Was that, there was a few key things that impacted all that. One was communication, 2 was scope creep, and 3 was, because of that, the extension of the project, which led to more dollars.
Sure.
And expense.
Yeah. And that probably was a pretty frustrating experience to go through. But I guess it sounds like if you guys were able to stay on track, and maybe if you were able to have someone that could manage scopes creep internally, and then also make sure that things are kind of staying on track, which would require technical expertise, that might enable it to work a little bit better. Again, maybe you did just have a tough experience with the team you worked with, and that might overarch everything. But I'm just trying to look for maybe a silver lining that if someone's thinking, well, maybe it's right for me, they can find if they fit a use case. Otherwise, if you are just a non-technical person trying to save a little bit of money, even though it's cheaper hourly, it might not get you there if the end goal is a launched app that you need to know the ins and outs of.
Yeah. And I would agree with the latter. And again, just my experience, but we worked with 3 different development companies overseas, and it was the same thing each time.
Okay.
So it wasn't just a one-off experience. It's been 3 companies where it's been the same sort of result each time.
Got it. Okay, yeah. So you guys really did try to give it a good effort, for sure. As far as inSuppli goes, I know it was inspired by manufacturing power and seeing a need there, but as manufacturing power is desktop based, what made you guys decide to go mobile first with inSuppli?
Well, that decision was based on a couple of things, and the majority of that was customer feedback, and the need for a quick and easy way to find a product that end user is looking for. And with the shift from going, I mean, everybody carries a phone, and everybody has it available to them everywhere. And the idea was that at some point there's, if we make this, if it were to be more complex than what it is, or there were more features that were involved in the actual mobile app side of things, we would definitely have considered making that more of a desktop type of product. But inSuppli is designed to be super user-friendly, easy to use, in and out type of application where a customer I'll give you an example. So let's say there's a maintenance person that needs a part to fix a particular machine on an industrial manufacturing shop floor. They need a drive belt, let's just say. And they're sitting there, and instead of going back to their desk and searching 10 different sites, they can have quick and easy access to the inSuppli mobile app, which shows them exactly who's got inventory locally and at what price it is. Then they can make their buying decision from there, or relay that internally so that people know who have the authority to actually make that purchase can make that purchase for them quick and dirty.
And that simplicity and accessibility are 2 things you hear so often about mobile apps. So that does make a lot of sense. If you're able to break something down to just a couple of actions your users need to take, it really is sometimes on the quicker end to get something like that developed. And in your guys' case, where it's partnering with another product, really can add some power to it and make your dollar go a little bit farther in development when things already are pretty expensive.
Yeah, I totally agree. And just to kind of recap on that, I mean, it being inSuppli mobile app was driven by a need that manufacturing power was not hitting. And it was great to get that feedback. We're very lucky that we received that feedback from end users, so that we had the opportunity to go out and develop that. And then, with kind of back to JMG's support of that and development, is that they totally got the fact that we are trying to make this as user-friendly, intuitive, and quick and easy to actually use for our end users as possible. So, I mentioned, scope creep and communication between teams. That's just been kind of the easiest process of working with GMG. So
sure. And how did you go about surveying those end users that you mentioned? Are they the same end users that Manufacturing Power has, or was it a different group of people? How'd you define who that was? I can see that being a really key first step for other founders.
Yeah, so we did have to, the core of the Manufacturing Power customer base is exactly who we're targeting with the inSuppli app, with a couple of exceptions. So we had to rethink a little bit about who the ideal customer profile would be for the inSuppli app, but it's all within the same structure, group, or org chart of who we've targeted for Manufacturing Power, if that makes sense. There's just for example, with Manufacturing Power, we would target the leadership within a procurement team, and that would be our target. Now, with inSuppli, it could be those people as well, but it could also be facilities maintenance people, operations people, anybody that is or has the ability to make a purchase for products that they need quick and fast.
Got it. And were any of those guys that were kind of outside of the scope of Manufacturing Power included in that group that you went to early and asked questions to, or were you pretty much only going internal Manufacturing Power?
No, that's a great question. There were so I try to find. I am a heavy LinkedIn user, and I reach out to industry groups to get feedback as well. So we have, some of the Manufacturing Power customers or potential customers may be a little bit biased, not sure how or why, but they could be a little bit biased towards a product like that because I've known a lot of the customers for a long time. So
yeah,
there's that. That's like, you never kind of want to ask your friends what they think about your product or your idea because, they're just going to tell you kind of what you want to hear. But when you reach out to people that, you don't necessarily know, you might be connected with them on LinkedIn, they'll probably be a little bit more honest and open with you about likes and dislikes and market fit. And if it's, if they would be a potential customer or not. So I reach out to LinkedIn groups or connections on LinkedIn through my network, but those people are typically within a group that we would consider to be a customer profile.
Okay.
So, getting feedback like that, we've collected, quite a bit of LinkedIn feedback and then customer and potential user feedback as well.
Yeah. And I think that's super approachable, whether it's Facebook groups, LinkedIn groups, you're maybe involved in some sort of Discord group for a community that you're involved in that you have a business idea for, and you simply reach out to those people.
Yeah.
I think it's one of those things that is kind of so simple it feels like you might have to do something more to do the right thing. But really just go to those people you want to sell to, be like, hey, could I ask you a quick question? You want to look over this and maybe give me a thought? And you might get a few no's, but getting 20 people to give you feedback within a week is, I think, a fairly approachable number. Yeah.
And I mean, just to add to that, so you might have some people that either they're developing a product, potential customers of yours, or are developing an app. Maybe they're not customers of yours, but they might be developing a mobile app that they want to turn into a business. And maybe they're going to seek funding, or they're going to go down, I guess, the venture capital road, or an accelerator program or something else. And the more market fit that you can prove, the better off you're going to be for that type of activity. And if you can be very specific and calculated on who you're approaching for that, I mean, you're not going to go out and ask your grandma hey, what do you think of my idea? Oh, well, she likes it, so everybody's going to like it. No, it's going to be more of a, it's going to be more, you want to be more targeted with that. And, the more people that you can find that are within that industry, that are industry experts, that have knowledge, that are, even if you can get some influencer support or influencer feedback when you're talking about social media, if you can get those types of people to give you a good, solid, constructive feedback, it only helps not only in development, but if you can prove that to any investors. Actually, I heard I listened to a podcast the other day, and I thought it was a very unique approach to seeking funding, which there was a gentleman who was in a similar phase of his development, where it was, okay, he had a product, he had customers testing it out, more or less like a beta test, but then he asked those customers to actually call up venture capital firms and tell them that they liked the product so much that they wanted the funds to actually give up a bunch of money so that this product could be developed and enhanced. So I thought that was a unique approach. So
yeah, that's almost like the campaigns that go out to get you to email your senator or your Congress member or something like that.
Yeah,
and they're targeting that towards the venture capital groups to be like, hey, look how many people actually like this.
Exactly.
That's awesome.
Exactly. Yeah. So that was a unique approach, and I mean, it worked out for that guy. He raised quite a bit of money, but he also had the product to support that. But it was a unique approach, and I think that's I guess one of the things that if you can get the support of industry experts, people within your network, people that understand your business or the business that you're trying to build, and you have people with that industry experience, you're better off for it.
Totally. And I think that's approachable, right? You get excited about an industry and you followed people to get information on it. You've got a couple influencers that might be at the top of whatever it is, your LinkedIn, your Reddit, anything, whatever you go to for your business news and networking. But that's palpable for people. And I think it's just that willingness to cross the bridge and ask them for a little bit of input that really can make you have the step ahead of another person with a similar idea in the market that has not yet acted on it.
Yeah. And when you say people that have a similar idea that haven't acted on it, I just want to bring up a point. I mean, and somebody said this to me early on, when manufacturing power was just a super early on idea. They said to me, and this came from a person who started in a business and was quite successful. They said anybody can have an idea, and you hear this all the time, but anybody can have an idea, but being able to execute on it is critical, and speed to market is critical as well. So you had asked about overseas development companies, and that's one of the I've made a million mistakes, but one of the big mistakes that I wish that I could go back in time and fix was getting the product to market in a speedier time, and executing on that is critical. And working with people that you trust, and there's good communication, and it stays within budget, and all those things impact that. But getting product to market is critical.
That makes a lot of sense. That's a definite key. Do you feel like there are any other major problems or roadblocks that you as a team are facing now that you've kind of figured out, or hopefully figured out, that development resource hurdle? Are there new problems that have come up, or are you still trying to solve any of the old ones?
The answer is yes. And this is, we're still considered a startup. So there's always problems and challenges. And, I guess one of the things that we've done to reduce those challenges and reduce that risk of making mistakes and doing things and maybe taking two steps backwards are, first, we hired a CTO that is has tons of technical experience and has been leading that charge, which has been a huge improvement. So
Good.
that's good. And working with more trusted vendors, JMG certainly included in that, has changed the game for us as well. I just mentioned speed to market, and we're getting ready to launch the mobile app, and I couldn't be more excited about it. We had set an original goal to have it pretty much done by the end of this year, and we're outpacing that, so that's great. And those are as far as challenges go. Anybody out there who's a entrepreneur starting up, trying to do anything from the ground up, knows that it's a roller coaster, and there's things every single day. There's so many ups and downs as far as from a business aspect, but also a personal aspect, where there's so many things that are good and so many things that are challenges that you try and overcome. But strictly from a development and a product standpoint, right now we are working to improve and get products launched, and then it comes down to our strategic marketing plans, sales plans that will take effect at the beginning of the year 2023, and we have some big plans for that. So as long as we can get the product to market, execute on those goals, we'll be in good shape, we hope.
That's awesome, and an exciting bit to celebrate over on finally getting ahead of schedule after a few stumbles, because I'm sure that can be pretty demotivating.
Yeah, but we don't want to talk about those things anymore.
No. I was going to hop on that. I was hoping you didn't dive into them too far, because I wanted to say, on that good note of being ahead of schedule, what do you guys have on the product roadmap over the next few years? Is there anything next, or is it just getting to the finishing line here and then figuring out those marketing strategies and kind of taking what you have first?
Oh, man. Well, I'm glad you
said you're an idea man.
Yeah. So,
I feel like there's something.
Man, this is where I get super excited about it, because I've mentioned it 1,000 times in this podcast, but I'm not a technical person, but I do have a lot of ideas for the products moving forward.
Yeah.
And a lot of that is stemmed from user and customer feedback already about what opportunities we have for the product roadmap moving forward. I mean, we've got about 10 or 15 things that are already in the sandbox, as they say, waiting. But the first things first, and this goes back to the execution and the speed to market and product to market, is that one thing I've learned over the past few years is that, staying within scope, having the, just understanding that from my perspective, took a long time to understand that. Like, okay, yes, I have ideas, but if you want to get the product to market, you have to curb those for a bit and get the product as good as it can be within scope. And then once that's done, you've executed that, then you can make decisions on how do you want to proceed, or what you want to proceed with, or what you can budget for, and all those types of decisions. But getting that initial product to market is the goal, and executing on that is key.
Yeah. Well, it kind of sounds like it's almost picking up into a bit of a flow where, as your product is now launched, you can kind of go back to that user feedback stage that you did very, very first step as, what do you think of this idea? You can start to go, okay, what do you think of this app? But then you have more data to prioritize. You're like, okay, what's making us money in the app? What's taking us a lot of maintenance time in the app? What do our users really need to save them time on their workflow end? And you can balance those, because obviously anything to improve user experience is going to be huge on the priority list.
Absolutely. I couldn't have said that any better. And except I would have probably taken about 10 minutes longer than you did, but
I get to listen to you think out the ideas for a little bit.
but then as you kind of just said, I have ideas based off experience of what I think could be good additions to the product that we've developed now. And I can't wait. You asked about, what's in kind of the product pipeline. I just can't wait to start presenting those ideas to happy, satisfied, ecstatic users of the current product. I want to be able to go into a meeting with them and say, hey, how do you like the current product? Oh, we love it. We love it. This is great. Couldn't live without this. How did we live without this for so long? Okay, great. Here, what do you think about this idea? And they say, ooh, never thought about that before. And they say, okay, well, how, if you were to build it, how would you like that? Or how would this make your job easier? What kind of productivity could this increase, or efficiencies, or, how much money could you save if we did this? Those types of things, and getting that feedback is the cool. That's what it makes me really excited, is that figuring out how we can help the customer and make that user experience, but also that making their job easier and doing those types of activities to really create a game-changing product.
Yeah. And I think that speaks to the importance of being able to launch something that is bug-free and enjoyable to use, because it can be a quick cycle the other way of solving bugs, talking to customers who are upset about bugs, hitting more issues, and then you're in a room with people or in a Zoom call with people that are all focused on negatives at the start of the call, and you have to dig from that and figure out how to recover.
Yeah.
As opposed to what you just painted, which is a very enjoyable picnic in a sunny day park.
Well, here's another thing, Michael, is that what you just brought up was fantastic, because, speed to market is great, but if you go into a customer, a potential customer, user meeting, by setting the expectation that, okay, this is a new product, this is our MVP product. We're looking for feedback on what we can improve, what's good, what's bad, what's ugly. Can you break it? Do you hate it? Give me your open, honest feedback about that. People do that. It's when you say, hey, I've got the greatest thing since sliced bread. Here it is. Then you get into more of a problem of like, well, it doesn't do this, this, and this. I'm never going to use this again. Where it's a different kind of mindset.
Yeah, I can't agree with that more. Coming in and showing that you solve a specific problem and letting them know the niche you fill, as opposed to coming in as the answer to everything. And the fact that you do those few things correctly and enjoyably and reasonably, it's not a very complex process for the person to go through, I think is absolutely what starts to differentiate things. And because we're also used to working on a phone or a computer with a high functioning product that's been put out by a enterprise level company, you get used to perfect user interfaces, and you go down to a startup product and you're still going to be expecting that perfect user interface, even if it's more simplistic functionally.
Yeah, no doubt about that. However, but also people that are testing these products. Number one, I think they're getting used to the idea that, okay, if somebody has an idea and they get this thing built, it may not be a Google product or an Apple product just yet. So we have to understand that. And I think there's more of an open-mindedness towards that now, just because of, time, and people understand, technology and building it and that type of thing more so than maybe at any other time in the past. But that said, and maybe this goes back to speed to market too. So when you are developing that product, okay, it's introduce the product, set the expectation that it's not going to be the greatest thing ever just yet, get their feedback, and then execute on making it more towards what their expectations are, and then getting that to market. Those are a couple of kind of key things in my experience.
An awesome takeaway for the listeners, because that is a great setup for success. Absolutely. In final thoughts, where can folks go to learn more about inSuppli if they are excited about it and connect with you?
Oh, there's a couple places. So specifically for inSuppli, you can go inSuppli with an I, 2 I's, INSUPPLI .com, or that you can go to manufacturingpower.com, just as it's spelled, or just as it's spelled, just as you would think it would be spelled. But then you can always reach out to me, Mike Franz, at LinkedIn. I'd love to connect with anybody, and if any of the listeners ever want to reach out, I'm more than happy to connect with anybody.
Yeah, you are a very friendly guy with your time, which is always appreciated. I feel like it is not tough to get 15 minutes on your calendar if you needed to.
Well, that's not because I'm not busy. Don't give people that impression.
Yes, he will work until 3 a.m. if it means he can talk to you for 2 hours in the afternoon, which 2 hours is too much time. Mike doesn't have that much time.
Thank you so much for the opportunity, Michael. I appreciate it. I can't say really enough about JMG and how I've been treated, and the work has been top notch. So I appreciate that, and that's my little plug for you guys. But if anybody ever has any questions or anything like that, please feel free and reach out.
Well, I appreciate all the kind words, Mike. I think you've got a very exciting product, and it's fun to see it finally get some legs and roll for you guys. I think that's well deserved. So it'll be fun to see where it goes from here.
Yeah, man. 2023 is going to be fun.
All right. Thanks, Mike.
Thank you.
Thanks to Mike Franz for joining the podcast today. You can learn more about inSuppli by visiting www.insuppli.com. If you're looking to learn more about your host, Michael Roth, you can connect with him on LinkedIn. Show notes for this episode are at constantvariables.co, and you can get in touch with any of us here at Constant Variables by sending an email to hello@constantvariables.co. Today's episode was produced by Jenny Kurkowski, edited by the Zazzy Jordan Doust, and hosted by Michael Roth. This episode was brought to you by the Jed Mahonis Group. Check us out at jmg.mn and sign up for our monthly newsletter at jmg.mn/news.